to Cyber Talks from Cyberwatch. And today we're going to be discussing operational technology. And here in the studio, we have three cybersecurity gurus with us. It's so nice to have you in the studio, gentlemen. We have the chairman, co-founding senior partner of MSF Partners or MSF Partners, Franco Monti. Welcome. And here in the Nordics, the leader of the company, again, MSF Partners for the Nordics, we have the managing director, Pekka Blomberg. Welcome, Pekka. And somebody who knows a lot about security and cybersecurity. So good to have the CEO and founder of Cyberwatch Finland, Aapo Sederberg. Welcome, Aapo. I'd like to start with terminology, gentlemen. We often confuse OT and IT, operation technology and IT in general. How do these relate to each other, and how would you best define operational technology? Who would like to start?
Andre, maybe I can make a starting point and then let my colleagues also add on this. The fundamental difference between IT and OT is that in OT we are dealing with, industrial process. It's the IT for the industrial process. So we're going into the infrastructure and we are, dealing with turbines we have to drive and to monitor and to make sure they're really doing the right thing in an industrial context. While on IT we're going to the back office. We have the office automation part. This is a total different environment than where you go to the plant and you have an industrial process, which is automated by OT. Maybe Pekka, from your experience?
Yes, OT is the traditional digitalization of and automation of different processes. So that's where you could say automation has started. And that's why it's so critical that we secure this environment, because a lot of our basic services and products are controlled by these processes.
And there are huge risks involved. We're talking about huge industrial complexes and infrastructure, so the risks are very high. What are the main risks involved in operational technology right now?
In operational technology, you do not have the flexibility to care the infrastructure as you should. So you're dealing with equipment which sometimes is going back 30 years old, which has been designed to automate, as Pekka said, the industrial process, but has not been designed to be protective or to have any protective measures on it. If you go to IT, you all know you have every week a new patch on your system, on your computer, and things are automatically improving. If you want to improve and fix an outdated component of OT, you need to stop the plant to bring down, your industrial equipment, which takes time in order not to destroy it mechanically. Then you have the interruption while you are not earning money because the process is standing still. You can fix the whole thing and then pump it up again and put the process into the gears. That's a different process. It's really difficult. So hence, in a conclusion, in the typical industrial environment, the patches and the changes of the outdated equipment does not happen as it should and opens a door for those who maliciously try to get in.
This availability challenge is a big one, because these processes are designed to work 24/7. They pump water, they provide electricity. It's the manufacturing process. Very often they work 24/7 all night long. You can't stop it. Or if you do, you have to have a very good reason for it. And therefore, the mentality has very often been, if it works, don't touch it.
But so I guess we need... Yes,
can I jump in?
Please.
Just, the risk behind the risk is always the threat. So the threat landscape is basically the same to OT than IT. But the environment is different. And then it used to be that OT is just separated and it's isolated. You can't go in through the internet. But now I see the biggest risk is at the moment when we are combining OT and IT without knowing what happens. And that's the mentality. And then we come to the knowledge and capacity. So you again, it's about the knowledge and how you plan and prepare, and then how you do your risk assessment as a whole.
And we've heard many of these stories of infrastructure failing, IT systems being attacked, or OT systems being attacked, or the combination of them being attacked. So what do you see being right now the top risks, in practical terms? Where do we need to direct resources and intelligence and new technologies to help us counter the risks that we face today?
It's a very simple picture, Andre, I would draw here. You have a house, it has a front door and it has a back door. The front door is closed, the windows are protected with the grid, you cannot just enter as a burglar. But the back door is completely open. You don't even need a key. You just go to the back door, and once you are in the back door in the house, you own the house. You control the house. And we have a similar situation that it's completely underestimated that on the plant level, you need to have protective measures. So if you do not have transparency and controllability of your industrial infrastructure against cyber attacks, but you protect your IT, this is not sufficient, because this will create an immediate risk. And given the tensions we have at the moment, that it's relatively simple to get to the plant through the back door of the house and to disrupt the industrial process, you can bring a company into very difficult situation and circumstances on reputation, on environmental damage, on safety topics, and the interruption of industrial processes like that, while you think you are protected on the IT side and everything of the house is under control.
Yes. So the challenge really is that like Franco said, the back door is open, and getting in is too easy, and there's very little visibility as to what is actually happening. You're monitoring the industrial process. And the first indication that you have that something is wrong is that your process is starting to fail. And that's not how security can be built. You have to get warnings earlier from your industrial process.
But explain to us, why is this back door so wide open? What is driving this increase of attacks? Is it because we have a war in Ukraine? Is it because criminals are getting more sophisticated? Or is it just that we've been negligent in our industrial process until now?
So you're posing two questions. One is, why is it open? Has to do with the complexity and the different measures and the structuring of the process, how you have to overcome these complexities in the industrial area to protect this. It's different equipment. You cannot just have a virus scanner and then you are safe, like in the good old IT world. Yes. It's very different to what you need to do. While in IT, it's easier, right? So there's a technical and circumstances and process-related difficulty why this is more difficult on one side than on the other side.
There are more vulnerabilities.
More vulnerabilities. Then the other thing is it's also a perception thing. You tend to have a focus on protecting IT first, while you think the isolated plant environment can be handled by the engineers locally in a safe way, and that's sufficient. So this has to do with your, awareness of the situation. Now, the second question you said, why is it so prominently important these days? I would not tend to paint a horror picture of coming from Ukraine or not Ukraine. I think in general, malicious players have realized if it's relatively easy to get into OT, I can put pressure on an organization to do what I want. Now, if I'm a crook or criminal, I can these days implant a ransomware attack even on an industrial environment and ask for money, and because it's so important, and it creates an effect like we had with Colonial Pipeline in the US, then I squeeze my opposite, which is the company and its management, into the corner where they are absolutely incapable to deal with complexity anymore, and I can really trigger then what my purpose on them, And that's a huge potential for the criminals. So you have criminals getting into this because it creates tension and gives them a good business case.
It's quite simple. The criminals look for the weakest link. If your IT is well protected, then your weakest link is on the OT side, and that's where they will try to get in and then ransom you for money.
If you had, would you like to add to this?
I think one point which should be added. So the cyber criminality, it's not always the same. It's getting smarter and smarter. So what we are now seeing that the cyber criminals, they are running it like a business. Their threat intel is much better. They know that the business idea follow the money. They follow the money, whereas big resources they are following, and then they always can create a new type of ransomware. So the ransomware used to be something, but now the future is different. And if you are looking how quickly the payments of the ransom have been rising, it's used. Nowadays, it used to be $5,000, now it's $200. And only 3 years has changed this attitude because of this, that they are smart. And that's why the complexity is growing. And that's what Franco said. We have to really focus on this and close to that.
So gentlemen, tell me, what is your perception, or not even perception, I'm this every day in your work. How would you describe the level of preparedness of our industries in our region, in the Nordics or in Europe or in the world in general? How would you describe the level of preparedness for this threat?
I think most of the companies that we talk to, they're aware that this threat exists. They're aware that they have a soft point on the OT side, but it's such a complex area. They can have many plants, and it's such a critical operation that they don't know where to start. So that's the challenge. There's so much to do. The critical operations running all the time. Where do you start? What's the best place to start and put your money so that you get the best value for money?
Actually, our studies shows that especially in Finland and also in other parts of the world, so the big corporations they have had resources. They have been investing a lot, and they are actually better prepared for the OT side. But of course, it's not perfect, but they have noticed in a way that this is a challenge. But when we looked at the SME side, then we see that, okay, they have hardly been able to put together cybersecurity for IT, and they think, OT, it's not their business. And that's perhaps the thing, but really it's a question about awareness. And looking Finland, this is we have to give a wake-up call. It's not just the Russian war against Ukraine, but this is also how the cyber criminality is evolving.
I think this is an interesting point, and I think if we talk very pragmatically, if we talk to exco teams, to executives in the company, such as a CFO or a CEO, who are really mastering the risks of their organization, or more and more to the board, which becoming really having a headache because they are responsible for the well-being of the organization, we realize that they do not understand that today's attacks are based on nation-state capabilities. So 2 years ago, they said, we have to defend against the normal crooks. That's it. We will never, ever be capable to defend against a nation attacking us. So we allocate our measures and budgets accordingly to that risk landscape. Now, these days, we have to tell them, excuse us, but we have a different situation. You have to cope with nation-state capabilities because the criminals are in the value chain of a nation-state capability, which ripples down to the criminals and then is used effectively on your organization, so you cannot argue anymore nation-state is something you don't care. So that's on the executive side. And also we are really at the beginning on it. This is the OT security is now, and the issue is evolving quickly on a board level, which then goes into the organization gradually. if you talk to the engineers, it's, as we all know, the engineers, they have the problem, no budget, no time, scarce resources, and they are just, they're looking at their infrastructure as something they really care, they know the details, they know all the hiccups, they manage this. They are not aware of the danger, and they're not necessarily, it's not their highest priority. They must make sure the whole process is not collapsing, in day-to-day output,
So what do? We heard President Biden, a White House, a strong warning. We can expect a nation, a value chain of attacks on all Western companies and infrastructure and states. It seems that there are a lot of holes in the system. We are perhaps not as prepared as we should be. So the question is to you, gentlemen, what do we do? What is the process for defending SMEs, big companies, state infrastructure, the entire backbone of our industry? What do we need to do, apparently now, quickly to face this risk?
So I think it starts with typically that the confirmation of the threat landscape and an agreement. Do we have the same picture of what happens? So there are, for example, in our country, there are companies who have risen the risk exposure from something which used to be low into a higher degree of awareness, and then created also with the crisis committee a vehicle where they really, discuss it and trigger activities into the organization. That's a good step to deal with this, to be really cautious. Now, what do we need to do is we need to start, creating a plan and a structure. Because you can lose easily in the jungle of cybersecurity somewhere in OT. That's not the right way to deal with this. So you have to create a clear understanding. Why are we doing this? That's the first thing. Because without answering the why question, people is not following, new activities. Secondly, what is our crown jewel? We cannot protect everything at the same time. Third, what's the structure we need to process to get there? And what are the scenarios and how can we absorb these on the resources side and what needs to be done first? That's what we typically bring in with our OT security blueprint, where we create a template which can be used for all the infrastructure industrial plants all over, and where we have a clear priority, a clear plan, and a clear indication on the resources need in order to structure and the process and start immediately with what is burning and important, but also creating a journey, because OT security cannot be fixed overnight.
So how does this happen with your Nordic clients, for example? What do you recommend they do in practice? Establish an OT security team within the company? I mean, what is the typical tool set to get started?
As Franco explained, this is a journey that they need to start. And there's many things that you need to do. And hardening the security and raising the security level is a long process, but you have to start. But the first thing I would say is you need to check that your incident response plan is up to date. Because you cannot choose when you will be a target and when you might have an incident. So that might come today, might come tomorrow, or it may come in years. But you need to be prepared to handle that incident. So that's, I would say, that one of the first things you need to check, that you have a process in place with a team that can act, with clear responsibilities, with escalation levels and decision-making rights, so that you can respond if something actually happens. And the critical thing about the OT space is this equipment is very delicate. Who can touch it and how is very well defined. And these people need to be on board in the plan so that if you have a problem in the plant, then you need to know what to do, how to shut it down. You can't just pull the plug. And you might create more damage than the actual incident.
Understandable. But as you mentioned, we're not talking about lonely mercenaries anymore. We're talking about more organized, even nation-level attacks on other nations. So I'd like to ask you, Aapo, what is the modus operandi of states working with SMEs or state-type organizations working with the private sector together. It seems that we have to do that in order to fend this off. What kind of game plan do we have for public-private partnership in this space?
Okay, first of all, we have to rely on our threat intel. So that's the first thing, that the state actors, the nation-state actors, they are combined with the criminality, and especially with regard to the Russian concept. So they have the APT groups, which have been doing last year's the most spectacular cyber attacks against US, which we have had some consequences here in Europe. So we have to believe that this is a real thing. And then we have to start, as the gentleman elegantly explained. So you can't just do one thing. You have to build the cybersecurity, and then it's up how you go combine your procedures, how you strengthen your technologies, and then more importantly, how you create the crisis response. Because when a cyber attack hits company, it doesn't matter if it's a small or big company, but it's always a crisis. And then you have to handle it. And how quickly you handle it, that's the best way, in a way, save the money and keep your business running. So that's the end state we have to see. We and especially with regard to the critical services and infrastructures in the society, they are the main targets, because the cyber sabotage is anyway the growing interest of the nation-state actors, which are looking it through the hybrid warfare concept.
It's a team sport. We should stop having lonely marathon runners, which used to be, everyone did his own thing. We can only cope with this threat if we have a football team which is effectively, playing in the World Championship, not in the third league. It's a team in the World Championship. We need to work together. No one is capable to resolve this anymore.
But what do you say? Are we in the second division now, and we need to up our game?
Well, we're not on the national level yet.
We're not there yet.
Definitely not.
Yeah. I'd like to come back to our first question of IT, OT. And you seem to say that IT is so much easier than OT, which is probably true. However, we need to also integrate OT and IT. Because, IT has its problems also. There are still attacks at that level. So how do we coordinate, typically within an organization, the IT, OT divide or synergy to make sure that all of it is safe or secure?
You're addressing an enormously critical point. First of all, we have to know that the majority of the known industrial attacks are starting in IT by simple phishing attacks on yourself, on your PC, on your account, and then moving down the organization until it ends up in a plant or in a part of the OT site. So that's the first most important thing. You cannot protect OT without knowing how to protect IT. Secondly, we have a governance issue. The CISO, the Chief Security or Information Security Officer, is not is not automatically involved in securing the OT site. Now, these days, what we see, especially in very large organizations, that the CISO is squeezed by the management to put his fingers on OT, and there he has a door which is closed because they say, you're not entering my house here. We know how to do it and how to protect it. So you end up in what we call OT security governance, aligning the roles, the tasks, the authorities, and the roles between a CISO and the plant management or regional plant organization, a COO, to find out how effectively the two together could reach out to protect the weakest link, as Pekka was saying, in the chain, which is the plant. Having the entire value chain, going from the plant to the IT, even going to the supply chain, to the suppliers, and to the other companies which you're partnering with, to make sure this is all a holistic view on where do we have issues and how do we protect this end-to-end chain.
What's the best governance structure to ensure this?
The best governance structure is not existing. There are, I would argue, there are some patterns which are helpful, which is called, the underlying principle is integration and alignment. You should not, push your thoughts onto the engineers or the plant management plant. You should involve them and align what needs to be done. The CISO typically brings the expertise, and he brings the methodology and everything necessary, the tools, the instruments. But the engineers, it's their infrastructure, it's their part of the house. Yeah. They have to do it themselves in their, with their own processes in the own infrastructure. They tend they want to do that. So you have to combine this. That's the usual way how you can find the football team. You have a goalie, you have a sprinter, you have different things. And the plant plays a significant role in taking over responsibility and acting.
Franco makes an important point about this is an ecosystem. No company operates alone. They are a center of an ecosystem. They have suppliers, they have subcontractors, they have customers. And very often what is created is a system of systems where different systems are connected together for performance and efficiency. But what is forgotten is security. So you have maximized the communication between different parties. Unfortunately, we need to start looking at that communication and limiting that to only the essential ones, only the essential communication, because otherwise you open up attack surfaces in all directions.
Well, we're reaching the end of our discussion today. Thank you, gentlemen, for this. Perhaps as a closing question to you, if you had to look in the crystal OT ball into the future and give us an assessment of how many years it will take for us to be in the first division or the world championships of OT security, where we can truly sleep at night and not worry, what year would that be?
Any guesses on your side?
Yeah,
he's throwing the ball to you. He's a team player. He's a team player.
Yeah. They know that I have the ball, so it's easy. It's up to your awareness. If you know what you do, this is done within 3 months, and you have an excellent team. But it's the mentality. If you are looking to ice hockey teams, so that it is more the mental capacity you have to have, and the mental capacity is the awareness and the right attitude. Do you want to win or lose? And we want to win.
So maybe I can add, from a practical view, if you reflect what it takes, journey from nothing, greenfield, to an adequately, decently protected environment, which, by the way, there is no absolute security, but just, so you have you can sleep better. And this is a journey which is usually going between 3 and 5 years. Yeah. So you have to really cut it into digestible pieces, and you have to understand where you're going to. So I would have a very provocative answer to your question. It will take us another 5 to 10 years on the Western industrial world to make sure that we do not have headaches when we sleep.
Thank you for that look into the crystal ball of OT. Gentlemen, thank you for your time today.